Hey, you're back with Andrew Laws at SEO. Well, it feels slightly egotistical to mention my name before the company name, but this is the Untitled SEO podcast, and I never like it when people say anything can happen, but do you know what? It can. So here in the third series of the Untitled SEO podcast, we're doing LAN, and that stands for Live Action Networking. I think people in SEO are really good at talking to each other, and I'd like to encourage us all to talk to each other more. So I'm bringing guests on and learning all about them during the podcast episode. So I have a very honoured guest here. Mr. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello there, I'm Matt Dickinson, freelance SEO.
Hey, now I'm particularly interested in speaking to you because how long have you been freelance for?
So full time about a year now.
Oh, wow.
Kind of just fell into it.
See, it's become a running joke in this podcast that everybody just falls into SEO. No one actually really chooses it, apart from one person I spoke to very
Well,
recently.
in fairness, the SEO side I did choose. The freelance side sort of just happened.
Right.
So yeah, basically I was working a job that I didn't really like. A friend of mine needed some SEO doing, so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? While I was
Okay.
looking for something else. And then a former client of an old agency got in touch and they wanted some doing, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. So I thought, give it a shot.
I find this really interesting because agency owners, myself included, SEO isn't certainly not a big agency. They get so obsessed about kind of the image of the agency and the personality of the agency, but the absolute truth is none of that matters at all once clients speak to your people internally. That's where the personality is really, really important, and that's where it kind of cuts through all the bullshit as well.
Yeah,
Companies can say whatever they want on their mission statement, but when you actually work with the people inside, so you're absolutely living proof of that.
yeah, and I think that's the thing as well, because it's not just like the people that sell the company aren't the people that do the doing usually. So
They are in my company because we're small. That
well
I'm
yeah,
afraid if I speak to you pre sales, you're going to be working with me. you know,
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I've worked at ones where there's been like sales, but that's also client services. But they don't do the doing, so they can sell something that isn't necessarily something I'd ever agree to.
I think that it's still a real problem in SEO. It's huge. I've been around the SEO world for one very very long time, and people selling things. Go, yeah, sure, we can do that, and worst of all, making promises.
That was just about what I was going to say. It's the promises, always the promises.
So I've never worked in an agency, but how does it happen? Do like your salespeople come to you and say, "Hey, we've got this new client," and you go, "Brilliant. What's the goal?" And they'll say, "Oh," and you'll be like, "You said what now?"
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's things like so they'll put a pitch together, and you'll feed into it, but then there'll be stuff that's like promises about what can be achieved, which you don't make those promises because you just don't know.
You can't. I had an inquiry recently, just last week. Somebody was very enthusiastic, and they'd been referred to me through a client I've been with for I don't know, 10 years or so, and it was all sounding really good until they said, "Can you give us a promise on the return on investment?" And I said, "No," and they in the end they said, "Look, we've had the proposal. We decided not to go ahead." So as usual, I said, would you mind sharing why you don't want to go ahead? And they said, we can't work with someone in SEO who doesn't offer promises. And I was like, that's unfortunate.
Unfortunately, they're slightly misguided by other people offering these promises,
Well, yeah, I
which,
hadn't considered that.
like, that's what happens because they've been promised things before. They think that that's how it works and how it should work. When in reality, that's just the opposite of it. Like I tell people, there's no guarantees with what we do, but if we do things right, eventually, we're going to see some progress. How far it goes, that depends on how good your site is, what Google decides to do, how much of it you actually implement. It's not like a promised game.
It's not. And sometimes I envy my friends who work in in fields that, like photographers, we're going to come and take headshots of your team. By the end of the day, you will have headshots of your team. And I mean, unless like something catastrophic happens, like there's a punch up during the photo shoot or something, but that you can make that promise. In fact, many years ago, before I started working for myself, I worked with a web developer. I mean, I'm going back to like 1998 here, and he shut up shop and he bought essentially a burger van, and he, instead of running his web development thing, he would drive his burger van to Ipswich Town Football Club and sell burgers on Saturdays
You know what's
around the
going to
match.
work.
Well, I can remember at the time, but I was really young, and I was like, but you were like building this thing. And he's like, the difference is what happens is these people walk up to the burger van and they say, I'd like a burger. And you say to them, look, if you give me some money, I'll give you a burger. And then that's it. The relationship is over. Now, I'd be a jerk and argue it wouldn't be, because you can still build relationships if you're selling burgers. I'm generally quite keen to build a relationship with anyone who's handing me food, but
Absolutely.
yes, but the idea of SEO, this is like a truth that people don't talk about. The idea is that, I will tell people we have the experience or we've seen this kind of thing before, but no promises, just
No.
not. It's kind
Well,
of
no,
mad, really. I can't think of any other job you do that.
that is the big problem with the industry, is that the promises that get made by people that shouldn't really make the promises.
Mm.
There's too many people involved. But like, that's the thing. I think it's a bit weird because some SEOs like doing the SEO side of it, but don't like talking about it or can't. But I started a small agency, so like I've always been client facing, so I've just got that habit. It probably helps that I've also worked in pubs all my life, so like
It's a
I'm
good
used to
blend.
people of all sorts of walks of life, so I can talk to people.
I think that the personal skill side of it, the side of being an SEO, does get overlooked as well. I mean, I don't know how much you know the background about the SEO. I worked for myself just by myself for around 20 years, and it's only in the last couple of years that I actually have employees, because everyone I work with, it tends to be freelance, which is kind of like a really, really happy gang of people. But I wonder how many people, when they first go freelance, have a bumpy landing when they realize that they're going to have to develop people skills.
I
It sounds like I'm
imagine
being mean, but it's
no,
true.
but that's true because I imagine you kind of look at it. Some people will look at it as a way to get out of an environment you don't particularly like. Like, a big agency is can be pretty hardcore if you're, in the wrong place. And if you're not overly people person and like you're not used to dealing with layers of like account management and different things like that, you probably look at freelance SEO as I can do what I want, but yeah, you have to actually get the clients. You have to be able to tell people what you've actually done.
Yeah, this is it. I do another podcast called SEO or Die with someone called Dan Callis, who I think you know.
He set this up. It was his idea.
It was his idea. Yeah, thanks, Dan. And his experience is working at fairly big agencies as well, and he tells the same tale. But I've got absolutely no experience. I can't. I don't know any other way of working other than building really good personal relationships with the clients we work with. I'm not going to say any more on that because it sounds horribly like I'm reading the text from an infomercial or something. But
No, but it's true because I mean, as well with the freelance side of it, you get to you can also set you could have a conversation with a potential client, and you can usually tell whether they're going to have ridiculous expectations or just be a nightmare to work with, and you can just say, unfortunately, capacity's not there.
yeah, or just no. I
Yeah,
mean,
or just
I've,
no.
it's taken me far too long to learn how to say no. And if anyone's listening to this who's either kind of fairly new in their freelancing career or considering going freelance, learning to say no will save you a lot of heartache. Every client I've ended up having a problem with over the last 24 years. Fortunately, not many, but the ones that have become difficult. I mean, like bad difficult, as in breaking down of relationship. Which I'll be honest, it happens because, again, honestly, people don't admit that a lot of the time. Sometimes it can absolutely turn into a dumpster fire full of dog poo. But generally those clients are the ones that my gut reaction when I first spoke to them was, I don't think I like them as a person. Which is like, looking back now, I'm a much older man now, but now I do occasionally bump into people who say, okay, let's talk about doing some work. And I say, I don't think we're a good fit. That's about the most brutal I'll say, is I don't think we're a good fit.
But that is the polite way of saying absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I've got,
because because that's the thing, like, if you are in a bigger agency environment where the people feeding you the clients into you, you don't have a say on that. So
that troubles me on several levels, because I've got friends still in agencies, obviously I'm not going to name, who I've had conversations with about the fact they have to do client management for companies that they either don't believe in, or they just don't like the people there. I mean, it's really cut and dry for me. Speaking of Dan Callis, actually, I saw the most obvious, brilliant no thanks from him a couple of years ago when um, a mutual contact contacted him about doing some work with a local butcher, and Dan's vegan. He was like, He was like, this is the easiest no there could possibly be. Yeah, just really, just straight up, absolutely not. And if you keep me on the phone, I'll tell you why. Like,
yeah, and I mean something like that is quite the extreme example, but it's right. It wouldn't be a good fit
no,
because
absolutely not.
he's not going to have any interest in it, and it's not going to make him want to push to do it. It would be if you took it on, you'd be going through the motions.
So, I mean, I know that is extreme. Is that the sort of thing you've seen? I'm going to say seen rather than experienced, to sort of keep you arm's distance from getting in any trouble. But
For me, I would say it's more a case of agencies being sales focused in terms of let's get more clients, but then should we really stop and think about whether they are a good fit,
mm,
or are they going to be unreasonable in terms of what they want for the amount of time and budget they've got for what you do?
I've been through this. This is horribly transparent, but I've been through this recently. Just I've never done outreach. Work's always come to me, as it does with a lot of people in SEO, because when you do a good job for someone in any industry, then you'll get referral work. So I thought, for the first time, I'll look out. I'll see who's out there. So I sort of started looking at these big lists of companies, and just went through them, going, wouldn't want to work with them. Wouldn't want to work with them, and it's really restrictive, especially if if you do. I don't consider SEO a growth agency. I think that implies a lot of things that we're not about. I've got no interest in having legions of people working with me, but I can't think of anything worse than just having to say yes, we'll work with you, and just knowing. Anyway, we ought to talk more positively here. This is
I do think that, but I think that is a lesson for other freelancers as well. Is that it's going to be hard when you start, but it's not worth making your life harder by taking on the wrong things.
no, it's not, and you can build it right, build it correctly from the start. So you've been going about a year, and you can not answer if you want, but are you busy?
Yeah, it's weird. It's peaks and troughs, um, and like the work comes in various forms. So I've got a handful of clients that are direct clients. They all tend to come through LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and then I do some work with agencies as well. So they'll just and they're overspill SEO basically, which that works for me because I don't have to do anything about getting the work. I can crack on, do the work, and if they want me to speak to the client about it, I'm more than happy to do it. But yeah, recently it's one of those things. But now I said I'm busy. Don't ask me that question next month.
Thing is, did it surprise you how quickly it ramped up? Because people, the big fear when people go freelance, that I hear all the time, is they'll worry that they'll be sat around twiddling their thumbs, not having enough work. And every single person I've ever known who's gone freelance within a month is or a month or a few months is panicking because they've got so much on.
Yeah, and I mean, I because I think the thing is, I hadn't really known how to make use of LinkedIn. Like for some reason, over time, I'd developed a massive number of followers, and I don't know why, but I did. But I never really did anything about it. So now that's where all the work comes from. And like, got one of those silly badges off LinkedIn, but people seemingly respect that. So it's like,
I just noticed you got more followers than I have, which is this is not a swinging your bits competition, but no, you're clearly saying something right, because LinkedIn, I do like LinkedIn, and obviously it is useful, but the algorithm I'm finding absolutely wild at the moment. Me and a couple of other friends are trying to sort of figure out the best thing to do, even although I know the answer is be genuine and don't try and game the algorithm, because shit, I'm from SEO. I know you don't game things. You just do good practice and stuff.
I think part of it for me though as well is when I stopped working for other people, it allowed me to use LinkedIn to be more real, if that makes
Mm.
sense. I'll say what I want, and if I worked for a company, they might not like that.
I like it a lot, and I just sort of been going through some of your posts like I'm an actual podcast host or something here, and just the language you use is so relaxed but so nice. It's not like you're sort of nonchalantly casual. It looks about the most conversational I think I've seen on it of anything.
I mean, that's the way. I don't have a business persona and a persona. I'm just me. It's what
Oh,
you get.
you have to. It's too tiring to do it any other way.
No, and like I think that's why I like being freelance because I can just be me. I don't need to worry about standing on anyone's toes or anything. I can just be me in terms of working. I can work how I want, when I want, and where I want.
What is this fear of? I try and be as genuine as I possibly can, but the reality is I'm not that interesting. So
Oh
like,
no, no, and that's the thing. I haven't posted in ages because I don't really feel like I've had a lot to say.
I've never quoted someone's post back to them during a podcast recording, but there is one in particular I want to ask you about, because I think for me, it speaks to your sense of humor, and I don't think we use humor enough on LinkedIn or just when expressing ourselves. You posted and you said, "Doing work is really." Oh God, I was about to try and do your voice then, which would be a big mistake. But you said, "Doing work has really chipped away at the time I get to chime in ridiculous LinkedIn posts, but I'm going to commit more time to that this year for a bit at least."
It didn't last long.
I love that. I love the fact you go, I'm going to commit, I'm going to do it for a little while, maybe.
Yeah, because there was a point where I'd schedule a load of posts just to be sort of seen, I suppose, really, and I don't have time for that.
It doesn't get seen.
Yeah,
Me and a guy called James Kindred, who's a dev that we work with, is very much kind of in our, I don't want to say inner circle, because we're anti-clique in every way we possibly can be. But him and I have both been testing different things. We've been testing, whether putting the link in the comments instead of in the initial post, whether sharing 5 or 6 articles that you found elsewhere with your own slant on it, whether that helps, which it should, because the whole point, LinkedIn wants us to be content curators as well as creators. So far, I've been running tests since November, and nothing has made any difference to anything
so
whatsoever.
like I don't ever read them, but you get I think you get an email weekly from LinkedIn, and it's like your post's got X amount of views this week. Now I haven't really posted in weeks. And one week it's thousands, and then the next week's like your posts like all over the time got 100 views or something. It's like,
I
what's your
can't
algorithm doing?
I can't see any logic in it at all. I decided to test it, and I made the stupidest video. Like, hey, let me walk you through the glamorous offices here at Yes Yeah. I was just doing really dumb stuff. Like, I was filming, and I was like, "There's a cobweb. Yeah, it's still there. There's a cobweb just there, and there's a cobweb there because in SEO it's like webs and spiders and stuff, so we have to keep that." And I was like, "How dumb can I make this?" I wasn't even like trying to write it as something that was amusing. It was just stupid. My God, LinkedIn showed that to a lot of people.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, fine.
but I mean, from a user point of view who's just reading it, I feel like it also just decides that you should see the same handful of people's posts over and over.
Mm,
Not necessarily the same post, but from the same people. I mean, some you're always going to see. So some of the big boys in the industry that we all know, you're all going to see them because they get the most engagement because they are often funny or informative. But
mm.
it's like, but where are the other people? I follow just as many people as I am followed by or am connected to. So
Mm.
out of that big number of people, surely more of these people are posting something, anything. Or maybe they
The,
don't.
the reach and quite frankly, the click through rate on my LinkedIn profile is abysmal. What I don't understand is after a few years of LinkedIn saying, hey, concentrate on your personal profile, not the company profile. My company profile gets seen sometimes tens of thousands of times and not acted on or clicked or interacted with by any of those people. I mean, as a click through rate, if that was like, click through rate for PPC or something, I'd kill the campaign. They'll be
Yeah.
like, whoa, why are we getting all those impressions and not getting any actions? And it could be that people just get to my site, my company page and go, ugh, and don't want to interact. But I mean, even like, surely with those numbers, you'd get someone who was drunk and asleep accidentally interacting, just the random
You would
people
assume
don't know
so.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
Stroking the cat. Oh no, I've interacted with Andrew.
And I don't know whether, I suppose it also depends on what it counts as a view of your company profile. Because if you post something like just a post via SEO, does it then count that as a view of the page, or do they actually have to click the page and then click to the site?
My guess is it's like the Facebook impressions thing. So as I understand it, when in ads reporting on in Facebook, I'm still refusing to call them Meta unless I absolutely have to.
No, I agree.
I mean, I have strong opinions about things that most humans don't care about. But in
It's
Facebook
Facebook, it's
advertising,
Twitter.
well, it's marathon while we're at it. None of this Snickers nonsense.
I think that might
Opal
have been
fruits.
that one. I remember opal fruits, but I don't necessarily recall a marathon. However, I don't like Snickers, so that's my
Um,
excuse.
yeah, so an impression or a view on Facebook is somebody skimming past, however fast they are, doing the thumb thick on
It
the thumb
appeared.
flick. It was, oh, they saw it. Like, well,
It was in
that's
their feed, but yeah, they didn't necessarily see it at all.
it's not
Or
really enough. I mean, if I paid to see a film and they whizzed it past me at 100 miles an hour, I'd be really disappointed. I would consider that a view or an engagement.
yeah, and I mean, if you're paying for that impression and then it's still counted, but it's really like somebody knows straight away it's not relevant because they've never heard of it or whatever.
This is why SEO is awesome, because we find the people that will engage. Here you go. You see, like I brought it back to SEO there.
Yeah, I like
That's
it.
particularly smooth, wasn't it?
Well, that's the thing. I think people look too much into it when really all you meant to do is meet the intent, and that's what we're there for. Get in
I
front of people that you can help.
Yeah, I was reading. There's somebody who actually writes a really really good email about SEO. I shockingly can't remember her name, but it came through this morning. So she was writing up her reaction to the next big algorithm rollout, and it's all based on what Google are saying themselves, rather than kind of that sort of SEO where people sort of lick their finger and hold it in the air and go, "I think this is going to happen."
Yeah,
And a lot of the stuff that Google are targeting are things that I look at and I think I'm not sure anyone I know is doing that anyway. So like, don't accept guests. It gives all these examples. This is from Google, and it was something like, if you're a restaurant and you're accepting guest posts from casino websites, we might reduce your ranking for those pages. And I was just like, wow, really? Surely that's not a new thing, is it?
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that I saw today. The whole like expired domain thing's
Yeah, yeah.
gonna be an issue for people, and now there must be so many people that have bought into that or done that for clients without necessarily telling them that are probably gonna get a bit screwed.
I mean, the expired domain name thing is I'm kind of surprised it's come up because it does happen. It absolutely does happen. But if even if you were going to do that, surely you'd look at the backlink profile of the expired domain and check it's in niche. I've one of my websites actually. I do a music podcast. It is on an expired domain, but the reason is that I owned the UK version of the domain, Beat Motel, for years because beatmotel.com only ever had a cyber squatter on it. I mean, for like 10 or so years.
So
And
did
then
you
by
take the .com?
they deregistered it, they didn't renew it. So I grabbed it. I was like, yes. I was like, that is a expired domain. But it's not an expired domain with any history. It might as well
I
just
was
be
just about to say, but
dead anyway.
also it's not. That's a different ball game to what some of these people are doing.
I haven't sort of dug really deeply into the weirder side of SEO for a while. I'm sort of periodically interested in it, like I would be if I was to watch a Channel 5 documentary about a medical complaint I knew nothing about. Kind of like sort of entertained, but kind of like slightly, I don't want to say repulsed, but
Well,
just kind
this
of
is
like,
the thing that I don't know why I'd never even bothered in the past to look at Facebook groups for like SEO, and some of the stuff they post on there is ridiculous. It's like it is like that whole black hat, but not even done well sort of thing. And
just a black hat with holes in it. Just
yeah,
like,
basically, yeah, it's sort of a black spotted holy hat. Like that, it's never gonna. The way that I've always seen it is if you do something like that, you buy an expired domain that has absolutely nothing to do with what you're actually doing, surely you're eventually getting caught out, whether Google say you are or not.
my attitude with any of those things is that generally, generally it's surely it's more work to try and circumvent Google than it is just to amplify the excellence of your clients and commit to good practice. This is why I do public speaking and I speak to groups about SEO. And quite a common question is how do you cope with Google moving the goalposts or the constant updates? And like, because they are only ever Google getting better at sifting out the junk.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you're making junk, this is why I've got IO as the domain as the TLD for the company, because input output, put good stuff in, good stuff comes out.
yeah. I well, that's it. It's that if you're gonna churn out AI content and Google's explicitly telling you that they want help for useful content, then you're not gonna succeed. Like I have a website, and I'll be honest, I've just spun up AI content on it just as a placeholder that I'm slowly going through, but I don't have time to do it, so it's doing nothing.
But then
But
your expectations of that are probably quite
yeah,
balanced, aren't
yeah, but
they?
that's the only problem is though that because I'm in SEO, like I have poor expectations for it. But if anyone does find it, it's like, oh shit, what?
It's such an interesting thing because people think that the AI content it's really polarized people. And when people first started talking about it, they were assuming it was going to be like your entire domain's going to get de-indexed. I mean, I don't think Google even drops domains anymore. I think that's proper like early 2000s scaremongering kind of thing. I've certainly in all my years I've certainly never known anyone to get de-indexed. Anyone,
Not
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 even
from something like
verifiable
that.
friends of friends of friends, nothing.
Oh no, the only time they ever drop off is if they like suddenly forget to renew their hosting or something, or renew their domain name, and it just disappears. It doesn't happen like that. Like they might penalize bits of it,
Yeah, even with manual actions, they don't say your entire website is now dead. So, to come back to your point, not that you need any input from me, but I think a placeholder AI content on your website's fine as long as you know what the purpose is. If you know what it is, and I've not done it, but I wouldn't. I would do it. I wouldn't discount it. In fact, no, I have done it actually. I have done it on the SEO site, and it was to I needed to get something up on a certain page quick. So I did it and then rewrote it a couple of weeks later. I'm all right with that.
And I mean, well, that was the thing. Mine was in the early days of freelancing, and I was like, well, I've got this domain name that I bought ages ago, so I'll just fill it out and keep adding to it and see what Google does with it.
Hmm.
And I mean, in fairness, it doesn't really like it a lot. It's not indexing a lot, and it occasionally sort of it'll index an extra 30 pages, and then all of a sudden another 30 will drop out.
It's people. Yeah, the other thing is Google doesn't know what they're doing with it half the time. So this fluctuation, it comes up with almost every client, and they'll say, "Well, how come the rankings fluctuate?" Like, because Google, I don't know what they're doing. They're trying to figure it out just as much
But
as anyone else.
and I mean that's part of it as well. Is the trial and error from their side of it is that it's down to what people are actually doing with what they get. If people still click through something and it's shite, well, that's sending them the wrong message, isn't it? So it's like,
Well, that's the thing. It's different in every industry as well. This is why the "how long till our rankings improve" question is completely impossible to answer, because I've ranked clients by fixing some broken links on their site because their industry was so far behind, and they had a lot of competition on paper. You know, if you looked up their competitors on Company's House or whatever, they're all making good money and had loads of clients, but none of them were exploiting SEO at all.
no.
Or so for that kind of thing, AI content, yeah, I'm not never going to say yay AI content. Although I'm not a luddite, but I just you could always do better. Just hire writers. You know, it's
Yeah.
just get somebody to do something. But that's less important. If you're in a really tight industry like, I don't know, mortgages, then your website has to be absolutely perfect. You have to have the best SEO strategy in ever.
Yeah. And they're very difficult just because of regulation.
Mm.
And like if somebody tried to do something with with AI for that type of content, then it would go nowhere. But I feel like they're also, and this is probably a different conversation for another time, but industries like that, yes, it has to be like on point in terms of what you say is correct legally or within financial rules, for example. But they're also soulless and like write good content that's factual, but don't make it sound like a robot has actually written it.
Well, it's the thing. Regulation is. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. Apart from it does mean that highly regulated, as you say, highly regulated industries are so terrified of sticking their head above the parapet. But you can. It's just the skill of the writer. You could write if you've got good writers. You can make anything interesting, and I've proven it. That one of the examples I give to people is got a client who sells hot melt adhesive application equipment for a very particular narrow band, right? It's a particular temperature range, and it's only like it's a very specific thing. And you know, when I started working with them, they're like, "You're not going to make it sound sexy." I was like, "There's always a way. There's always a way." And with them, it turned out to total cost of ownership. If you bought their equipment instead of the competitors' equipment, you'd the brass nozzles. I won't go into all the depth, but the stuff would last longer and didn't need as much maintenance. So there's always something, but yeah, very very dry. The copywriters, yeah, pull your what's the phrase? Pull your socks up. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing, I suppose. I think part of it though, in like an industry like that, it's the information you're fed to do it.
And it's the thought police that your output has to get past, isn't it?
Yeah, and like because for example, that sounds similar to a client that I used to have within an agency I worked at 10 years ago. and like they did stuff with hoses. So as you can imagine, that's actually slightly more sexy than what you've just talked
Well, no,
about.
to be fair, the adhesives company, they did heated hoses.
Oh, right, okay. Wow. I didn't know we were playing top trumps with bad. Well, not bad, but you know what I mean, like difficult ones to actually sell.
so, so there's always something though. There's always an angle. There's always a way of making it interesting.
Yeah,
What's one of your more challenging? I know you don't have to mention clients or anything, but what I've just told you a subject that kind of came into me, and on first glance we're like, I don't really know where we're going to go with this, but we will. There'll be something.
I think. Do you know what the hardest thing is? Getting them to buy in sometimes because they understand what they do, but they view their website as their baby, and they don't want to. They don't want to like deviate from what they do by being. They don't want to meet E because they think that that might bring in the wrong sort of people because they're answering questions that are higher up the funnel. And it's like, well, we can show off here. We can show what we know about the technology that you work with.
Have you read Marcus? Have you heard of someone called Marcus Sheridan? I saw him at a conference last year, and I read his book last month, and it basically is. It might as well be called inbound marketing for dummies, but it describes. I bought a copy for one of my clients recently, and just went read this because it's called They Ask You Answer, but it lays out so perfectly why you should give away information. But no, I absolutely hear you. I can't name any of the clients who do this. Sorry, there's someone on the roof next door, and they just started chucking things off the roof. That was weird. Look, so I know we're on a podcast, so no one can see anything. But look, you see that? That's like the view. It's the side of like a shed or an industrial site. That is the view I have had for years. And a man just appeared up there and started chucking bricks off the top. God, sorry, that was very unprofessional of me.
This
But
is
that
one of the
was
wildest days in your life, isn't it?
this is God. What a day! Oh, Matt, we have gone massively over time, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the conversation. I think we ought to catch up again actually because
We'll do the other one as well.
I wish what yes, so SEO will die. That one first episode of that was well, they're all fairly wild. Do you know Dan Callis then?
I only know him through LinkedIn.
Oh
But
right.
clearly, it was the same as like you've read my stuff and he's read my stuff, and he was like, "Well, yeah, he needs to go and speak to you."
Oh, Dan is exceptionally talented, and I'm not going to say any more because he might listen to this. Um, so Matt, I'm gonna kind of draw a line under this episode, but I think I'd definitely like to speak to you again, and
Absolutely.
partly because I'm slightly worried about someone hossing rocks off the roof
Well,
next door.
right. Just make sure you message me sort of later on today, just so that I know that they're not coming for you or anything.
Come from SEO agencies on industrial estates are probably not like targeted like casinos are or anything. I don't think there's
Well,
gonna be
you
like
never know.
someone coming down on an abseil thing and smash through the
That
window.
trophy, they might be after it.
Oh, what my that's my Toastmasters trophy. I won a competition for talking like a big boy.
Good effort.
Yes,
I hope
I'm
you're
quite
proud. This
pleased
is
with
my
that.
first one of these ever.
It's been. Tell you what, let's stop recording because we're now just like literally having a chat. So, Matt, I really appreciate your time coming on. It's been thoroughly entertaining and insightful and all that good stuff. I'm going to say goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye?
I've enjoyed it, and thanks for listening.